Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome back to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and we did our best to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory and failed, and as a result, we're back on the winners list. Following this football team is not for the faint-hearted. In just 411 days, we went from 109-point victors to winning by under a kick. Grapeviney, I'm still in Queensland, and I nearly kicked in a TV that didn't belong to me. How was it at the ground?
It was pretty tense at the end, Andy. It was pretty tense all the way through the last quarter, and I thought there weren't a lot of Demon fans there, to be honest. We were significantly outnumbered by the Blues, but I think those of us who were there sensed pretty early on in the last quarter that trouble was looming, and so it proved.
I had in my notes just about the crowd. I can't see where I put it, but it did sound. They said there was 55,000 there. It did sound like it was overwhelmingly a Carlton heavy crowd. How was that at the ground? Is that accurate? That it was probably about 4-1.
Yeah. It wasn't the greatest of days, and not a lot of Demon fans out in force. But I was actually surprised that they got such a big crowd. But it was largely a Carlton crowd.
I think Carlton fans are quite optimistic. I think they feel that things have turned around for them. They're going to get a new coach. I don't know whether they'll keep the caretaker coach, but I think they're quite optimistic that their rebuild. This rebuild is going to be successful, and we know all too well about rebuilds and failed rebuilds, and maybe we have to rebuild again. But they seem very confident, and I also feel that Carlton fans are absolutely clueless about the rules of the game, more so than most other clubs. They call ball or 50, and they just boo at everything. Yeah, am I unreasonable to say that, or is just my hatred of Carlton coming through?
I thought we had, for the most part, the rub of the green on the weekend, so perhaps they had reason. I've watched certainly the third quarter a couple of times since, and we got a couple of decisions our way that quarter that were probably a bit baffling. So, look, I think we've noted on the program throughout the year that the umpiring, the standard of the umpiring has fallen across the comp, and probably saw that in again on the weekend.
About the umpiring, this was the first week, I think, for a long time that I felt that we really had the rub of the green, as you say, from the umps, but not in the last quarter. It was certainly overwhelming. The free kick stats at half-time were in our favour, but by the end of the game it was even Stevens, and I think we were struggling to get a free kick towards the end, and they were getting everything. But I don't know if this is the umps evening things up, or it's just my one-eyed Melbourne coming out. That Hannon kick at the end, that really summed up our year perfectly. I think I actually blew on the TV, the aforementioned TV that I nearly kicked in. I think I was blowing on it, blowing that ball over the line. It's very rare that you see it, because it looked like it had momentum and then just absolutely died in the arse.
Yeah, look, everybody, it looked fairly soon off the boot. It looked like a good thing, and you just thought this is going to bounce through, and bang, it stopped dead in its tracks. It's incredible. As you say, it encapsulated the season perfectly for us.
And I've paused the Brayshaw slide in with his boot, and that should definitely, I think they definitely should have called or done a review on that. I don't know how conclusive it would have been, but it did look like he got his foot to it. It probably would have gone with it's the umpire's call, and he's called it a point. But I think that should have been reviewed. It could have cost us a game in the end.
I didn't think. I liked the fact that David Roden, it was behind the goals there, didn't go to the review. But as they pointed out on the couch on Monday night, the fact that it didn't go to review meant Carlton could then move the ball quickly in from the kick in. Whereas if it had gone to review, we would have had time to sort of set up. So in that sense, it did sort of impact the game. But I'm comfortable if the goal umpire is willing to back themselves. And from what I saw on TV, it looked like a good call.
Even before the final quarter, before I knew we were 3 men down, and I spoke to you just shortly before we went on the air, that I thought we'd give up the lead, and you disagreed. For me, it's no surprise that that's exactly what happened. I think we only had 9 rotations in the last quarter, and I think for the whole second half we were 2 men down. If I'm correct, I think Hoare and Petty were both off before half time.
No, I think Petty went off in the third.
In the third, okay.
And then, probably about midway through the third or earlier, just before midway through the third.
And then once T-Mac's gone down, I just sort of knew they'd come out hard, and I knew we'd be, sort of cooked. I'm not sure if you know these stats. I saw some stats on something about our last quarters. I think we're negative 84, and this was before this week. We were negative 84 in last quarters this year, and
I actually thought it was even more than that. Maybe I've seen the post this week's stat, but yeah, I did see that kind of number, and yeah. But look, there was a reason, as you point out, on the weekend. When you're down to 9 rotations in the final quarter, you're going to struggle, and we struggled. I think Angus Brayshaw said it was the tiredest he's ever been at the end of a game. So you could see the ruckman was out on his feet, Braden Press too. So they were all cooked.
Yeah, and Brayshaw had that run at the end. He ran from the, almost the middle of the ground right to the goal line. So
should Hannon have given the handball over the top?
It's funny. People have mentioned this, that the video footage shows Brayshaw, and there was another guy also next to. We had another guy as well. I'm not sure who it was. In line with Brayshaw, but they were both pointing forward. So either he should have, sometimes they just pop it up sort of in front of them, but then you sort of, you can
taking a chance on the bounce.
The bounce could just the bounce up, bounce left, right, and knowing how luck it goes, who knows where. So I don't know. He could have maybe handballed over the top. I'm not sure where the Carlton player at the time was. I don't know. Look, if it wasn't wet and soggy, I'm not. It started trickling. It started raining towards the end of the game. So I don't know. 9 times out of 10, that ball probably goes through the goals, at least a point.
Yeah. Look, there was nothing wrong with the kick from Hannon, and Angus and Hannon might have well thought, well, we're both knackered. We're pretty much the same distance out. It's only a few feet away from him. It doesn't really matter which of us takes the kick, so go for your life.
Big Preussy, you mentioned him before. I thought he was impressive in the ruck. He's had 44 hit-outs, 14 disposals, 5 marks. I mean, he's not Max Gawn. No one's under any illusions about that. I've been screaming for him to be in the team with Max for most of this year, if not even just to see how they both perform together. And he obviously, you said he was cooked at the end of the game, but who wouldn't be rucking the whole time? And then with TMac going down in the last quarter, before the last quarter. But I was impressed with the job that he did. He's playing on Cruiser, who's, what's he had in the end? He's had 24 hit-outs, only 11 disposals. So I think he's performed quite admirably against a former number one draft pick.
Yeah, and with T-Mac going out, and we'll discuss this later, you'll probably get your wish. Or you might get your wish this week.
By default.
Yes, but yeah.
Well, I've got in my notes that I've just written here. I said, he obviously won't be dropped if Max returns this week, given T-Mac's injuries.
No, look, you're right. He played well, so good on him.
Yeah. Look, it'd be interesting, and obviously it's a moot point now. Do you think he would have got a game had T-Mac not got injured? Do you think they would have kept him in with Max coming back?
Without knowing the Bulldogs sort of situation and setup, I thought he did enough to deserve another game, whether it warrants in the matchup and playing on the narrower Dockland Stadium is a different story.
Our kicking for goal, particularly from set shots, has just been absolutely woeful this year, and this game, with the exception of our kicking in the third quarter, was no exception. Wiedemann missed a couple of absolute sitters. One of them he missed everything. Is that in the head? That's got to be in the head because he's usually a great kicker goal, but
he's definitely down on confidence, Sam, at the moment, because when he's kicking properly, he kicks through the ball, and he hasn't been doing that. He's been trying to guide it from 25, 30 metres out. So I think it's just a confidence thing for him. And but he keeps cracking in and having a go. It's not coming off for him at the moment. Even the goal that he did kick, the ball sort of fell in his arms. He almost dropped it, a chest mark out the back there. But he's coming along fine. Yeah, it's a confidence thing with him.
I think it's a massive confidence problem, I think, for all players, because it seems that whenever we've got players within scoring range, and we've talked about this often this year, in particular the last couple of weeks, definitely players are taking a mark and they're looking to give it off to someone else as if they're terrified to be the one responsible to kick it themselves. So
how did that situation happen when Nibbler kicked out on the full from... He was about 20 metres out.
Yeah.
And he could have had a shot for goal. I don't know whether he was kicking for goal and it really went wayward, or whether he was trying to pass. And it's just, what is going on here? Why are we not kicking these goals, these absolute sitters from sort of 15, 20 metres out? It's just bizarre. And as you say, this we saw last year how well the teamwork can be, and sharing, and players out the back and giving off. But there's got to be an element of taking on the responsibility too. And the balance is right out of whack at the moment.
I've got no problem with them passing it off to somebody, but you've got to hit them. You can't miss with those. If you're going to give it to a guy in a better position, it's got to hit them. And if it's not, you take the responsibility yourself. It's just it's very frustrating.
And you shouldn't be missing by 15 and 20 metres, and some of those kicks are missing by wide margins.
Our injury woes have gone from bad to worse. Marty Hall, who's been a great find for us, it's just disappointing, excuse me, that he's going to miss anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks, or possibly, I think he's listed. Have they given a listing for him? Is he still TBC? So I'm not sure, but he could miss the rest of the year depending on how the collarbone heals. It's a shame. Petty may be back this week, depending on the concussion, but the losing of the rotation with him off the ground was the main damage done already with that one, because he can probably be replaced in the team. And TMac, just obviously a huge blow. I mean, he's started to find some form. Kicked six until 3/4 time, and that was huge. And I guess we don't know how the game would have panned out with him still on the ground in the last quarter. A couple of stats regarding TMac at the G this year, and this is just for games at the G. First 7 games, he averaged 10.1 disposals, 3.4 marks, and 0.6 goals. The last 2 games, he's averaged 24 touches, 8 marks, and 4.5 goals. So, I mean, this was TMac coming into the TMac that we know and loved from last year. It's going to be a big loss for the rest of this year, but let's be thankful there was no ACL damage there.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Again, it's as though the footy gods are playing a tragic joke on us all. The timing of it. He looked great on the weekend. As you say, it was back to the Tommy Mac of 2018.
I just wonder what is it that has sparked this turnaround in him, because we were thinking there was some injury. Didn't look like he was carrying any injury. That I've been speculating all year that there's something had to have been wrong with him, but he certainly the last couple of weeks has not looked like being hampered by anything, and now the footy gods have cruel.
Who knows?
But
who knows what's happening with those mysterious toes of his?
Yes. But one door closes, another one opens. It's time for Wiedemann to stand up in the remaining weeks, and he's got to show something, and let's hope that he can.
Yep, absolutely.
Frosty. He's a weird one, Frosty, because he has moments of brilliance. He takes some great intercept marks. You can bank on him to take that mark in the last line of defence.
Excuse me.
But then sometimes he just does some silly things and coughs it up, and it can be quite costly. He's a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team sometimes, but I have been impressed with him, but I want to pull my hair out sometimes.
Yeah, you're not the Lone Ranger there. Look, he's playing with a lot more confidence than he did last year. And I mean, he is the epitome of chaos ball, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. But with him, I would prefer that he didn't play that. For him not to play the chaos ball, I'd like to just.
Well, no, I mean that dash out of the back line and I'm just going to get this and run.
Yeah.
Good on him, because he doesn't, he doesn't really get caught. It's the turnovers from the kicks that are the issue, rather than the run and carry.
But I think I'd prefer him to bomb it and kick it long, rather than just a short cough up, and I think in one case they scored a goal directly from it. If he's going to run and then kick it long, maybe less costly that way. But yeah, been quite impressed with some of the confidence he has shown. Clary stepped up. I thought stepped up a notch in the last, particularly when they got close. It was a great pass off to Hunt, which ended up winning us the game. What were your thoughts when Hunt had that ball? He's kicked. I think he's kicked 18 goals, 10, and he's missed some sitters this year. So my heart was in my mouth. Did you give him a chance?
I actually wasn't too fussed, because I thought he's going to score, so I thought that'll be the game regardless. Although that would, as we know, that didn't sort of turn out to be the case. But I was reasonably confident that he'd get it, Hunt, because he'd had his kicking boots on before that. With a couple in the third.
Someone in the post-game thread said something that amused me. They said that the only winner on the day was the Adelaide Crows, given that they are the ones that still hold pick 2 as a result of our win. There were a lot of people in our post-game thread that they weren't happy with the win. I think you've got to be happy with the win, even ugly wins, especially with
absolutely
where we've had. There was a lot of angry people in our post-game thread, I must say. It sort of was 50-50 in terms of who was happy and who wasn't.
Yeah, look, I'm on the happy side. It's a miserable season. No one's denying that. So enjoy the few wins that you're going to get. But we controlled that game until three-quarter time. As we did discuss earlier, I didn't think at any stage of the game that we were under threat from Carlton until the injury situation in the last quarter. So I thought we comfortably accounted for them outside of that. Now, look, the comeback wasn't good, and yes, it had its reasons, but no one likes to see 6 and a bit goals whittled down like that. But as I say, in a year with few joys, celebrate them when you can.
I wasn't particularly impressed. I thought we should have been a lot further up at quarter time. We missed our
Yep.
chances to be only, I don't know what we're up at quarter time, but I think it was only 3 goals up. We could have been 5 or 6, possibly more,
Even more, yeah.
up at that time. And certainly at 3/4 time, we should have been a lot further up. We sort of, again, bled goals. We were kicking goals and then just very quickly just giving them up. So, yeah, for me, that was the disappointing thing. I wasn't impressed with our skills. I'm going to let them off the hook a little bit with the last quarter and the rotations. They were absolutely cooked, and when you can't make the changes that you want to, it's very hard.
Yeah. Look, make no mistake, the skills in the first half were atrocious from both sides.
It was just so much worse.
Carlton's skills in the first quarter were probably the worst I've seen this year, including all of our games. And as you say, we could have been a lot more up, but
I think our first 3-4 goals or something were directly from their turnovers. So we that's where it was frustrating, because they were coughing it up and we didn't make them pay.
Yeah, and as you say, the real worry is the ease with which they scored, even in the third quarter. It took us forever to do what we had to do throughout the game, but as soon as they went forward, they goaled
every time.
Every time, and that's the real worry.
And as bad as our set shot kicking was, they've got a player, Levi Casbolt, who, according to my Carlton mates, couldn't hit the side of a barn usually, and he was just slotting things through from the boundary, from everywhere. Well,
didn't we nominate him last week as being the most likely to kick a bag against us because he was so hopeless in front of goal?
Yeah, I knew it.
I think we have to, if we go back over the transcript, you'll find that on the tape.
Yeah, I think so.
Binman's asked, or Binman said that he'd love to see Frosty on the wing. What do you reckon about that one?
I would like to see him on the wing, but I think we need him in defence. But it all depends on what happens once Lever's back in the team and settled nicely, and Hall back, and I think we're obviously talking about next year. If we can get a situation where we can have May in there, Lever, Hall, Jeddah back as a small, and then have Hibberd as the other smaller, and then with Salem, then maybe you can bring Frosty up to a wing. I've liked him in that he can kick a goal. He can kick a goal on the run. So, given if we've got all the pieces in place, I'd like to see him tried off the half-back wing, for sure. But we've got to have the players on the park, and at the moment we need him where he is.
Yep. D Zephyrs, just on the back of what we were talking about a moment ago, said that of all the games last round, our game actually had the second lowest number of turnovers. In terms of sort of the sum, it was low, but it's, as he says, it's just the basic errors without pressure that really stick out, and there was an abundance of those on Sunday.
Well, that's an indictment on the level of skill across the board of the AFL at the moment. I didn't watch any games this week besides our own, but from what I've read, I've heard some people saying how poor some of the skills in some of the games are. So, there you go.
Yeah, the skill level across the competition is terrible this year. So, Hawthorn Collingwood on Friday night was very poor standard. And you've got games where it's 5-4 midway through the third quarter. So, as I've said before, not enjoying my footy this year.
No, definitely. It doesn't help when we're not winning. George on the outer in the chat room has just brought up a point that I had next on my list. He says, "What do you think about Lewis being on a tagging role on Murphy?" And I had in just the notes I put down. I thought he had a good game at times, and at times had the better of Murphy. I think Murphy's had quite a number of possessions in his last couple of games. I think he's kept him down to 24. So, were you happy with when you saw Jordan Lewis line up in the middle?
I was nervous.
Nervous, yeah.
But look, Murphy was pretty quiet. He doesn't add a lot of value these days, Jordan. He's just spends way too much time on the ground. like literally on the ground, off his feet. He goes to ground very quickly. So whenever there's a contest, he's out of it quickly.
You asked the question. You asked the question last week whether we'd see him play again, and or someone in the chat room, I think, maybe asked the question if we'd see Lewis again, and I said no, I don't think we'll see him again. But obviously he's come in. We're short on players. He came in.
Yep, and Amines Jones can play at halfback, as Big Man says in the chat room, and that's going all right at the moment too.
Yeah, and apparently Jones didn't come off in the last, so I think he was also a bit cooked in the last, given our lack of rotations that we could make. What about Christian Petrarca? There was a thread made about him on Demonland this week, and it was a positive thread about Trac for once, which was nice to see. That maybe he has just quietly, had his breakout games just quietly sneak up on us. I think he's had a great game, and his strength and evasive skills are great. He impacted the scoreboard this week with 3 goals. I've been very happy with him in the last few weeks.
Yeah, he's playing really good footy, and I generally agree with the proposition put forward in that thread that rather than sort of bursting onto the stage in one massive game, he's just sort of slowly building to a really, really high level. And he's been one of the few players that's improved year on year and has improved throughout the year. So good on him. Yeah,
it's about time. We were sort of waiting for it to happen. I think it's happened while we weren't concentrating on it. And I like what I see. How did you rate Kyle Dunkley's first game? He's had 11 disposals, 5 tackles in the forward pocket, and 3 goal assists. And the one that stood out for me was the kick that he kicked to TMac. I thought it was a really well. It was sort of not a dribble along the ground, but he just kicked it really nicely so that it would bounce nicely into TMac's hands, who ran in for a goal. I like him. Happy to see more of him. Yep, good debut. Well done. And
5 tackles, like that's the coaches want to see that kind of energy and those kind of numbers, don't they?
Well, so we were critical last year of Dean Kent. I think he spent time in the twos because of the tackling pressure. There was, I think he got sent to the twos to build that up into his game. And Garlett, obviously, been critical of him with his lack of sort of defensive efforts in the forward 50. And for Kyle Dunkley in his first game to go out and get 5 tackles, that's what we want to see as a forward. And, I'd like to also see him kick goals as well, and I'm sure that will come. And the 3 goal assists, he's on his way to that. I'm happy with that.
Yep.
What did you think of Caro? What show she on Footy Classified? Saying that we over-celebrated the win.
Yeah, I thought it got... she beat it up, and then what she said got beaten up on Demonland. Because it was almost a throwaway comment. And, look, they brought it up, so I guess it's not a throwaway comment. They've decided to mention it, but... I
mean, we won a game. We're allowed to celebrate a win.
Exactly. Particularly when the odds are stacked against you. And the players would have known at 3/4 time that this is going to be difficult. Celebrate the win. It's a trying year, so... it's important to get the confidence that comes with a win too.
If we were a top 4 team this year and we were 5 goals up and coughed up a 5-goal lead and just snuck in a win, maybe then you can say, guys, maybe ease up on the celebration. But we've had a dog of a year. We've barely scraped 5 wins together against the odds with 3 men down in the last quarter. You're allowed to celebrate the wins, and particularly when you've had a year like we've had. I've got no problem with it, and she can go stuff herself.
They were beating it up because Chris Judd commented last September that we were over-celebrating before we'd, achieved anything. So they referenced it off that, but they were trying to, beat it up a bit, and you've taken the bait. You've taken the bait, it seems.
Yeah, I have. But I
was going to comment in that thread that someone mentioned that it was in The Age the next day, and I was going to post that person must be the person that's still reading The Age, because there aren't many people that do that anymore, and you won't be able to buy it in your newsagent for much longer anyway.
Oh, is that a scoop, or is that?
No, that's an opinion, not a fact.
Okay. Yeah, look, I had no problem with the celebration. Juddy made those comments about the game in Perth. Was that the game? The celebration in that game?
That we'd made finals. That's right.
I had no problem going over to the West and getting a job done. Let them celebrate. It's not like they went on a bender for a week after that. Then I'd have a problem. But
you're right. If we were up the top of the ladder and we'd thrown away a lead, and by all means that we've over celebrated. But this team's had a trying year, so let them enjoy the wins. And it was a good one in the circumstances.
Yeah, I agree. That's all from my notes of the game. Anything else from this particular game that you think needs mention?
No, that fairly covers it for me too, I think.
All right. The other things I had in our other notes for the game, Bartlett, no major review at the end of the year. What would you make of those comments?
Happy with them. Very happy with them.
You're happy that he made those comments, or are you happy that they're not going to look at what went wrong, or you sort of happy with the way this season?
No, I just don't think that we need to have a major review. And I think good organisations are constantly reviewing what they're doing, and they don't wait. They don't wait to make changes, and we've made changes already. I expect there might be a few more come the end of the season, but no one's mounted a case as to why we need a thorough or external review of everything. We've lost, 12 games or whatever, and we've been crap for 12 games or half a season. You have a major review if you're 2 or 3 years into the, down the track and you're going nowhere still. That's when you need to have a thorough review. You can't just make losing a few games the threshold for let's have a review, because then every team that's down the bottom of the ladder every year would be in constant review, because you're either at the end of a cycle of seasons where you've gone nowhere, so you do need to have a major review, or you're doing the Melbourne thing, is you've had 12 bad games with mitigating circumstances, and you're also having a major review. So no one's made a case as to why we need it. And I saw someone say in the thread today that, why not just double check everything? Well, if you go to the doctor and the doctor says you've got gastro, you don't say, well, can I just have a scan on my knee as well, just to make sure that I haven't also done my ACL? If there's a problem, it needs to be fixed, and I expect the club to be able to diagnose that without a thorough or external review.
I like this post by Jaded in that thread we're talking about. He says, the best/only good thing about this season has been the calm heads and the stability that the club has shown. No leaks, no finger pointing, no board meetings. It's all been kept and dealt with internally. At least we can sleep easy knowing that the club is no longer operating as panicked amateurs, and I'm certain we will make some off-season changes to our coaching, fitness and development teams. And I sort of agree with that.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, we haven't.
Couldn't agree more.
There's been none of that. The only thing that's come out was really there's sort of been proven, or at least no substance to it, was the Brendan McCartney, issues or issues in inverted commas.
Alleged issues.
There. So,
look, what's the precedent for a football club going into major crisis mode after half a bad season. There's none. And you notice that there's been no pressure in the media for such a review. And it's really only coming from people on Demonland who, if anything, the criticism of the administration is that they haven't done enough and Pert hasn't been seen and they should be saying something and doing something. So I couldn't agree with Jaded more. Cool heads that understand the predicament we're in and are prepared to wait the required length of time to properly assess the situation, which will be in about 12 months' time.
Do you think it all stems from us not going on the camp last year? No, I'm just kidding. We'll move on to the Casey game. I haven't seen any footy this week on my holidays, so I didn't really even see anything about the Casey game. I know that we've won our 4th on the trot, albeit we nearly kicked ourselves out of it. 11 goals 19 to 11 goals 6. Anything about the game? How did
I know nothing at all. I didn't even know that we'd won. I haven't even checked the thread. I've been so busy, but it did. I was thinking at the weekend about the 1948 grand final, which we won against Essendon, in light of Freo kicking whatever they kicked on the weekend, and Casey's kicking woes and Melbourne's kicking woes in the drawn grand final of 48. Essendon kicked 727 to our 915, and then we beat them. We beat them the week after. So 727 to 915.
Wow.
So imagine losing a granny on that kind of kicking.
Oh, well, I'd be pulling my hair out, I think.
Yeah. That would, we wouldn't survive that, would we?
Oh, no. I can't imagine the podcast after that one. Did they have podcasts in those days?
No, they didn't.
I'm sure it all went down at the pub after the game.
Interestingly, though, there was a rather large post from Percy Beams this week, who, of course, was a very famous Melbourne player, but was also a very well-known journalist for The Age. So there weren't podcasts, but there were Melbourne football playing journalists. And pretty good ones at that too.
Are you saying he was a player and a journalist at the same time, or after his playing career?
I'd have to check on that.
Might need to get Super Mikado to call in.
Super Mikado would know that.
Yeah, he would.
But to answer your question, I know absolutely nothing about the Casey game, so it's a shame that we haven't seen Drunken online for a while. Because obviously he's our eyes and ears down there, so we might need to get Casey from Casey on one evening, perhaps.
We will indeed. All I can see, I saw the bests. We had Wagner, James Jordan, and the word I'm hearing on James Jordan, people are quite bullish about him. Probably won't see him till next year, but it sounds good. Lever got in the best as well. Good to see, and Kennedy Harris again. So we thought, Kennedy Harris would get a game this week. They obviously brought in Dunkley ahead of him. So Kennedy Harris would want to get into the team at some point, and I'm not sure what his contract status is, but you would think if he doesn't get a game and he's not contracted next year,
Yeah, look, if I had my choice, and we'll be talking selections in a moment, I'd be replacing Nibbler with Kennedy Harris this week.
Yeah, I was very disappointed in Nibbler. I know he had a couple of shots on goal, but he's got that's what he's in there for. He's in there for the crumbing forward role. He's just not doing it for me. Hasn't all year.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a crumbing forward, but he's not doing anything. He's not. He's sort of a link man down there. But he's breaking the link in the chain more often than not, failing to capitalise on the scoring opportunities that he does get. So, it's a bit like Tommy Bugg. But But Tommy Bugg was getting more of the ball. Nibbler's way off base at the moment, and just doesn't make his possessions count when he gets them.
Well, we can take this opportunity and talk changes for... Well, we can go first off.
I should just note, Percy Beams didn't become a writer at the age until he'd finished his football career, so he wasn't doing the two at the same time, although footballers weren't full-time then, so he must have been doing something.
Yeah, but then again, there are footballers these days who are semi-journalists. They're writing in the papers and...
That's true.
True,
Maxie's a bit like that.
Yeah. Our injury list, just when we think it's being whittled down a little bit with returns of Lever and Jetta and Maxie for a week, we've got more injuries. Well, we know the seasons, Joel Smith, get Jeffy Garlett now, Tommy McDonald. And the interesting thing I see here is Jake Milksham is still listed as 3 to 4 weeks. He's been 3 to 4 weeks for at least 3 to 4 weeks.
Almost since the time he did it, no?
Yeah. I think
or did he start longer?
I think initially he might have been 4 to 6 or 5 to 7 or something, but it hasn't really whittled down that much. I doubt we're going to see him again this year, so you can almost put a season on that one. I doubt he'll come back for the last game or two. But
how crucial was he last year?
Well, what stat was he leading in? There was a stat.
It was contested one-on-one contests in the forward.
Yeah, and he also
50.
I think also he's inside 50 stats or something like that.
Kev Martin had Jake running laps at training this week. So
as in Jake Lever.
Jake Melksham running laps.
Sorry. Yes. Well, that doesn't bode well if he's not. No. I don't know if he's just running laps. You'd want him to start. I don't know. I can't see him playing again this year. That's my tip.
Doesn't look likely at the moment, does it?
No. Interesting. Tim Smith, who's got to be the unluckiest guy, cannot string games together. Is listed as a calf, but TBC. And TBC in Melbourne talk is we have no idea what's wrong. And it could be 4 to 6. Got Billy Stretch with the foot is TBC. Aaron Vandenberg is ankle, TBC. Generally, when you put on the TBC list, you never see these guys ever again.
Never TB seen again.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Look, it's... Yep. In the words of the great Mark Neild, it is what it is.
Now, did Kev Martin, because I spent very little time on Demon Land, just snippets here and there while I'm away, but I did read his training report and I noticed that, did he mention that Braden Preuss wasn't cited?
Yes.
Is that a cause for concern?
I wouldn't have thought so. I would have thought he played a full heavy game.
Yeah.
Throwing that heavy frame of his around on the weekend, so not surprising to miss an early training week. I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, that was the Tuesday session.
Yeah. You mentioned Tim Smith being unlucky before. Who's unluckier, Tim or Joel? And should we just get rid of both Smiths? And their cursed luck.
Well, you'll have a lot of... if you look up Smith in the phone book, you'll find a lot of them there, so you wouldn't want to be discriminatory to the Smith name. You'll have lots of people...
It might miss out on the next Norm as well, I suppose.
That's true. Our injury list, Maxi. Well, hopefully he comes back this week, so changes this week. Looks like Lever got through the game.
Yep.
What do you do? I mean, people. I read a few people saying, no, don't rush Lever back into the team. But what's the difference if he plays? Obviously, you want to give him some games to get some touch, but
he's playing football.
He's playing football. He can potentially get injured. So, if he's ready to play a full game of footy, then I'd have him in the seniors, particularly with Hoare going down, Petty, depending on whether he gets up from the concussion. I think we need to bring him back in.
Was it against the Dogs that he went down last year?
At Marvel as well.
At Marvel, so maybe there's a superstitious reason not to bring him back. But, if you think how innocuous the injury was last year, I mean, you can get that almost walking from your car into Gosh's. So, this idea that, he's somehow protected at Casey's, misguided.
I didn't see the incident with Tom McDonald, but someone said it was quite a similar thing. That it didn't look to be too bad, but obviously, it's just that turn.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that on a number of occasions, haven't we? Really innocuous knocks that turn out to be very serious.
So Jeddah played in the twos last week. I don't think he had a hell of a lot of touches, but bring him back.
Was that his first game?
Yeah, I believe so. He's been out a while. So
he's been out a while. I guess, and again, apologies for not reading the Casey thread, but it'll depend really on how much game time he had last weekend as to how ready he is for this weekend.
Yeah, I don't have any stats on that. All I've got are his match stats, which just say 6 kicks, 2 handballs, 1 mark, 1 tackle.
Yeah, George on the out has just posted in the chat room Jeddah was on limited minutes, so I would have thought they'll probably play give him a second game with Casey. Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know who you bring in. Maybe you take out a nibbler, put in Jay Kennedy. I'd like to see, I said it last week, I'd like to see what he's got, particularly if he is coming to the end of a contract. You've got nothing to lose.
So lever for Hall.
Yep. We don't know about Petty yet. TMac, if Max is back, then Max takes his place and possibly just swaps out with Preussy in the forward line.
Petty for Omac, if that
if Petty
happens.
doesn't come up, then you think Omac is the one to come in. And Bailey Fritsch, he was playing all right. I
thought he played really well.
Then when he hurt his knee at the knock to the knee, he had to remain on the ground. I don't know if under normal circumstances they might have bought him off. So there's a possibility he could miss, but I don't know.
Yeah, the other issue is, and Bailey started, I think, on a wing, but then after Hall went off, he then had to go back again. So, but look, I saw people complaining. It must have been in the post-match thread that he had a few turnovers, and he did, but it was definitely his best game for the season. So
someone said did he have 13 disposals in the first quarter?
Yeah, he had a lot of the ball. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
and looked good up the ground. So.
Well, I've been saying it for weeks. I given a full team and full complement in the back line and having Jeddah in there and Hibberd fit and obviously Lever and May and Hall in the team, Salem as well. I'd like to see Bailey moved up the ground. I think that's his best position. I understand why they've been playing him in defence, but ideally I'd love him to move up the ground.
Yeah, Good Oil says it'd be madness to play May, Frost, Lever and Omac against the Dogs. And that is, I mean, Lever's, Lever would be taller than Hall, wouldn't he? Hall's been playing that similar type of role, so.
Yeah. So, all right, Omac, you got to go back to Casey for another week.
Look, it'll be interesting selection. Selection's been interesting all year, and particularly the J. Kennedy Harris question. You'd really think this is sort of it for him.
Last roll of the dice, I agree. All right. Anything else, Mr. Viney, before we wrap? wrap things
On
up?
Monday morning, I went into my local coffee shop and Ronald Dale Barassi was in there with his son, who's in there quite a bit. And just before they got up, I said to him, I asked him whether he had seen the win the day before, and he said, "Don't tell anyone," but no, I didn't. And I told him he didn't miss much. And he asked me if I bagged for Melbourne. I said, absolutely, grew up with 31 on my back. And he said, "That's a pretty good number." He winked at me, and then he walked out of there. So that made my day and almost made my week. I still, we're not young anymore, but I feel like a little kid when I see Ron Barassi at games or as it was the other morning on the streets. So, what a legend.
All right, a couple of things there. First of all, he told you not to tell anyone. You've just told at least a couple of hundred people that listen to this podcast. Second of all, you had him there, and you could have invited him onto the podcast as well. That poor form by you.
Yeah, I've been negligent in my duties, haven't I?
I mean, what a better guest to get than Ronald Dale Barassi on the podcast.
I was so starstruck it didn't even enter my mind. And it's like that whenever I see him. We do see him a bit at the footy. He often sits near us, so it is great to see him. And I think he's 83 or 84. He looks great, so it was really good to see him.
Yeah, put a jumper on him and get him out there. We need a bit of that Ronald Dale Barassi magic.
Indeed, we do.
All right, with that, I think it's time to wrap things up for this week. Next week I'll be back home and back in the Demonland studio, so the audio might be a little bit better. We'll be able to take calls, and I think maybe next week we've got another former Demon, Stephen Stretch on, but I've got to confirm that with him. If not next week, then the week after. Thank you, Grapeviney, for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Go Demons.
Go D's.